Imagine standing shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of Floridians, business owners, and advocates inside the state capitol, ready to make real change. That's what Cannabis at the Capitol is all about. The signature Lobby Day and Education Expo from the Florida Cannabis Action Network, where voices intersect with policy and passion turns into progress. For just $50 for individuals, you'll gain access to expert briefings, self-guided meetings with lawmakers, and the power to influence Florida's cannabis future. For businesses, $300 unlocks premium access. Connect with decision makers, showcase your enterprise, and build alliances in a fast-growing sector. Whether you're a medical patient seeking stronger access, an entrepreneur navigating regulations, or a company ready to stand at the forefront of industry change, this is your platform. One day in Tallahassee could shift a lifetime of regulation. Join us. Be present. Be heard. Be the change at Cannabis at the Capitol.
Good afternoon, Cynthia Brewer. It is time for Elevated Intel.
Yes, it is. It's about damn time, right?
Lots to talk about.
You know, it's funny. The last few episodes, we haven't had a lot of news. And then this week hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, hey, you think it's all easy reporting on hemp and cannabis? No, I'm going to throw you this curveball and just F up your entire week. So you only focus on this one very important thing that happened this week. Can anybody guess what it was?
And I do want to throw out a fact because as folks are coming on, I am sure that they will realize that the number one thing we're going to talk about is the hemp industry and what's happening federally with the hemp bill, with the continuing resolution to fund the government, right?
All of those
things. So, but I think that it was funny because I had a top fact that came from the hemp workshop this week.
That's right.
Stay tuned because before this episode is over, we are going to tell you what the number one violation is that retailers are seeing in the hemp industry here in Florida.
So you know what the answer is?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
The
Jody
number
Jane.
one violation.
I'm going to guess at the end.
Okay. And I'll bet you're a pretty smart chick.
No, I'm like medium to moderately smart. Let's be honest. Let's call it like it is. Yeah, I use the thesaurus too much. If I was naturally smart, I wouldn't have to. I don't have a vocabulary like you do, which I've heard many people compliment you on.
I use a word or two.
You do. Yeah, you do. So,
dude, I am not feeling brilliant today. I got to tell you, I'm not feeling brilliant today.
I feel the same way. I feel like there's things I want to say and I can't articulate them. And I also want our listeners to know that the reason we're focusing on one topic today is because there ain't shit going on anywhere else. So you're not missing anything. We aren't depriving you of any additional news. There's just nothing else except for this. So we just decided this.
Right. Going to be about this. Well, last week when we were talking, I started mentioning how the whole government shutdown was over cannabis, and not everybody believed me. So maybe it wasn't.
I didn't believe you, but I will eat my words.
Fair enough. But in the dead of the night on Monday of this week, when they were trying to decide, whether they were going to pass this or not, it really was people like Ron Paul in the Senate going, whoa, 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 whoa.
Thank you, Ron Paul.
That change things. So for those of you who are trying to guess, we do want to talk today in depth a little bit about the federal shutdown, the ending of the federal shutdown and the continuing resolution to fund the government. Can I let you take over, Cynthia? Because you did a deep dive on this.
I've been dove in there we go with the words again. I had to ask you if the word whilst was a word, but yeah, no, I've been submerging myself in this because I want to get the most relevant and important information out to our listeners because, as you know, Jody, sometimes the news can put out the wow and shock and awe before, and that scares people into thinking fire and brimstone and everything's going to crap. And so we need to be the voice of reason, information, education. And that's why today's episode is don't jump, Everything's going to be okay. Unclench, whatever you want to say. This is going to be your informative educational episode. If you're in the hemp space, if you're not, or if you're concerned about it, this is going to give you the facts so that stop reading the news and panicking. This is everything we can give you that we've compiled since Wednesday when all of this went down.
And all this happened. And for listeners, I will tell you, we are talking internally here at Florida Cannabis Action Network about getting some folks, maybe from the Hemp Roundtable, to come in and do a little bit of speculating, but we're not here to speculate today.
But we will.
Oh, good. All right. Well, I never mind a little bit.
We're going to have the industry stakeholders do a little, we'll do a panel. We'll ask them their perspectives, their outlook, their concerns, and we'll be able to hear from the players that are directly affected by this.
Good answer.
That's important. Yeah. So that will happen. It's not going to happen today. Today's going to be just Jody and me just tossing out all kinds of nonsense. So prepare. I hope everyone is ready for this and medicate heavily because it's a doozy. So
I forgot to do something.
Oh, if we need to pause or go off, whatever you got to do, Jody, whatever. We got you.
All right, well, I'm with you. What do you got?
Wednesday, the most boring of days of the week, hump day, all of a sudden decide to throw us a curveball when President Trump, signed the continuing resolution, the government funding bill, whatever you want to call it, which would end up reopening the government after the longest shutdown in U.S. history. So it's not like he had a choice on signing it. He had to sign it. It was like, whatever's in there is in there. It's not necessarily support of, it is enough's enough. So he signed it. Bipartisan opposition of this language in this funding bill, which was led primarily by Representative James Comer of Kentucky and 12 of his colleagues, voted against specific hemp language that was stuffed in there very secretively, very, cloak and dagger style. We kind of knew ahead of time that they would attempt, but they really put a push on it. And Rand Paul, like we said, definitely tried to file an amendment to prohibit the language from being in the final copy. And I think there was another representative that we talked about that tried. Massey, that's right. Massey and Paul definitely get our props for the week for number one triers to not have this go through. We love our triers, right?
Well, and this was kind of even leading up to Wednesday. It kind of went back and forth because I was doing this. We talked last week for viewers who were listening to last week's episode. We talked about Section 607, which was the language that would keep the federal government from rescheduling cannabis. Now, remember, this is a budget bill. So the idea that they're putting policies into a budget bill, I think that's what you do. Sneaking it in. Oh, come on. You don't. Yes.
I've put things in budget bills.
You load up whatever's moving. And that does tend to be what they do. Yeah. Earlier last week, Section 607 was in there that would have stopped rescheduling. Of course, President Trump seems to be an advocate for rescheduling. So that is not something that the president wanted to see in this bill. But then we also had this crazy language that got added at the very last minute.
Right.
And this language that got added at the last minute really has an impact on an industry that hasn't had much time. So Cynthia, the
hemp industry is going to be adversely affected significantly by this language, but everything's going to be fine as long as you are educated as to what this looks like and what your options are. If you are a hemp retailer, someone that supports the hemp space, that wants to do the right things and play by the rules. Now, if you're someone that does want it to go back to the way it was, this loophole, this gray area, that's not going to happen. So, rest in peace, because it can't continue. It was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And we all knew this. The gray area loophole that was created by Mitch McConnell as with his support of the 2018 Farm Bill. It wasn't sponsored by him, but he was a huge advocate of the Farm Bill in 2018. That loophole was now closed by Mitch McConnell. So we can speculate as to how some of this may have got to the finish line. Oh, you have your hand up.
I apologize. I had things going on and
It's
noise happening
okay.
in the
I was
background.
like,
I'll put
question.
my hand down.
No, you're fine.
I understand that closed captions aren't on, and it's important that we get understood. So I was trying to figure out some closed captions,
Oh yeah,
and I'm
you do you, girl. I got you.
carry on. I apologize
Okay,
for interrupting.
you're
Okay,
fine. So
I'll raise
Mitch
my hand again.
McConnell was definitely instrumental in making sure that this language was in this budget bill. And you say, well, why when he's the one who created it? Well, it's his last year out in Washington. Okay. This is his legacy. They say that if it's your last year, you get a legacy bill that's going to pass regardless. And this apparently is it. Now, also behind the scenes, there's a lot of talk, and I think it's completely based on truth from the top 5 whiskey companies in Kentucky, really funding and having their lobbyists contribute to Mitch McConnell getting this across the finish line, because they are seeing on their balance sheet significant loss of underage drinkers as a whole, alternative drinking being more favorable than whiskey. Now, one of these companies is Buffalo Trace, which is my favorite whiskey, so I'm going to let them have a pass, but I'm not really thrilled, so I'm not going to go buy any. But whiskey companies, alcohol as a whole is seeing loss in market share. And so I'm just going to say a warning now. I'm going to get this on the record now. If alcohol, whiskey, wine, all of these different collectives, which they make different types of alcohol, but they seem to come together in a coalition just fine. Like we must do cannabis and hemp eventually. If they're willing to take out the hemp industry for taking a tiny bit of market share from the THC, with their THCA beverages, whatever, what do you think they're going to do to the cannabis space when this is done? So this is the time for you to stop just reading the headlines and start creating them by doing something.
So, when we were talking internally about what Florida Cannabis Action Network's position on this was going to be,
yes,
we kept coming back to the idea that Cannabis Action Network has always been an organization that was challenging prohibition.
yes,
And it was interesting because I thought, well, the hemp business, they're going to take care of themselves, right? Because business takes care of themselves. And I think that the hemp business didn't pay attention to how many decades we had prohibition. And the reason we had prohibition for all of those decades was because hemp has so many enemies.
oh yeah,
When we start talking about now that we're getting a share of the alcohol, but as soon as we're into mass production, will we get a share of the cement? Will we get a share of the plastics? Because the plastic industry is the oil industry. So when we start talking about hemp plastics, we are directly challenging the bottom line of companies like Standard Oil.
you have to know your enemy if you're
Abs-
going to be infringing in an industry that creates friction. So we knew right out the gate that our enemy was actually, we didn't know out the gate. Let's say we learned over time in cannabis that our enemy was not the government. It was not, they had a couple of hurdles, but they stopped raiding locations after a while. And then the states started to implement, become more comfortable. Our enemy essentially could be big pharma. It could be big tobacco. It could be the black market. It could, but it's not necessarily an individual. It's a collective of people
It
that
is
don't like
correct.
what you're doing, not because it's cannabis, but because you're taking money out of their pocket,
Right.
which,
Right. And they fund organizations like Drug Free America, not because Drug Free America cares about being drug free, because they certainly take money from the pharmaceutical industry
right.
and the alcohol industry and the tobacco industry, but they care about making sure that they are keeping their share of the pie and that they're cutting out everybody
Yeah.
else. So I know High Times has an article out talking about how the manufacturers of alcohol hate hemp and the distributors of hemp are like, bring it on, regulate it. We're
Be
ready for it.
careful. Don't like go looking for the devil, because he's going to show up eventually if you start looking. So if you think as a hemp retailer that you can take on the alcohol lobbyists and these coalitions, you are significantly going to be disappointed. They are not just well funded, they are particularly framed specifically with a group of people that want to do their bidding. You don't have that. So no
Yes.
matter how
Yeah.
cocky or
Yeah.
confident you think you are, you will never have the ear of Mitch McConnell unless you have the money to put someone's ear over your way. So let's just accept the fact, accept the things we cannot change, and forgive our enemies and all of the things in the books and the things and the sayings. But to talk about the meat and potatoes, the bread and butter of what the language that was signed, that is official, says, and what that means for the hemp industry, we are going to get into those finer points. So essentially, like we said, Mitch McConnell spearheading this activity, even though he created this activity. So you can either love him or hate him for giving you either a really nice fat paycheck over the past few years, utilizing that loophole, and then he closes it. You can't be mad. But he's the one who ended up closing it. So he's in his last year. This is his legacy. And as Hector and the Libertarian Party of Miami-Dade said, this is our present that he left behind for us as he leaves his time. Good riddance, you jerk. But we're going to get into what the language actually says. So I called a bunch of people. I called in some favors. I wanted to do some math. I don't want to do math, but I did some. I wanted to see exactly how much this would affect the bottom line, how much it would affect the retailers. So everybody says, oh, okay, 95% of the hemp industry will no longer be allowed to make products. That's technically true. It's very restrictive, and it does not have any wiggle room anymore, where there was a bunch of wiggle room before in the language of the Farm Bill. So now we know how we got here. Let's talk about what here looks like. So Section 781 is the section of the funding language that deals with hemp specifically. Now, it redefines what hemp is, and it pretty much takes it from the everybody can play with it if you want to into a you're never going to be able to play with it even if you feel like you should or can. It focuses primarily on industrial hemp being a renewable resource, non-ingestible opportunity for farmers. So when they say all these farmers are going to be affected, well, they could grow industrial hemp, but there's not a lot of money in that unless you can sell it to someone or process it with a decorticator, right? Which we never had in Florida at the beginning of the program. So all those industrial hemp growers couldn't process their stuff, so they went to CBD. It's expensive to buy a decorticator. So yes, and it's protected under industrial.
These over-the-counter formulations from oils or extracts, that really is low-hanging fruit. Doesn't require any machinery or very little machinery.
Kitchen chemistry and some, ingenuity.
To make clothing is more like 13 machines from the time you even after you harvest the hemp. So you have to have a huge infrastructure to get past that. So I'm saddened by this, but so they do recognize in Section 781 that we still want to have a hemp industry.
Industrial hemp is still just fine. It says obviously the restrictions, you are not able to make things that are going to be in your person, but on your person, perhaps, if that's an easy way to describe it. Don't ingest it.
Would have allowed us to grow hemp up to 1% THC. And I think that was really something that for people who are growing industrial hemp, we can't grow industrial hemp that's less than 0.3% THC.
To be honest,
that's the challenge.
There's other markets in their industrial hemp programs where they allow for a higher threshold, higher than 0.3%, because it's like, why punish the farmer for something that's just barely over the action level? However, I do see some markets, and I think even Florida implemented like a truncation of values, where if your potency value is 0.336, you can truncate the values to just do the first one, and that farmer would pass. Now, that was not a handout. That was just good, but that was just good regulation. And at that time, it was completely reasonable. But 781 says in 90 days. So there's a couple activities that are going to happen in 1 year, 365 days. Hemp retailers that are selling products that are above this new threshold will no longer be able to sell them. The threshold is no longer 0.3%. Now it is in there as language, but that's probably concerning biomass as a whole. And it does calculate total THC. Now it does not provide you the formula of calculation, factoring in decarboxylation, which is what they left out in the loophole before. They've closed that by saying total THC, including acids, but they didn't put the formula because I don't think they know it, but that's fine.
Okay.
That means you are no longer allowed to utilize just the Delta 9 aspect of the language where everybody was kind of utilizing. So now you have to factor in the formula for decarboxylation when you factor in if you're above 0.3% THC total. Now, they added maximum THC value to a container. So this is where retailers are going to be severely affected. And even retailers that aren't utilizing psychotropic cannabinoids, but retailers like CR World and Treadwell Nursery that are making just rich CBD, full, broad, multi-spectrum products, they will feel this significantly. The threshold is 0.4 milligrams per container.
Container.
So what does that look like in real life, right? So I called a colleague of mine who does math better than I do and also works as a lab director for us. And said, I want to know what this looks like in practice. What would a tincture, a CBD tincture that is 30 mLs, which is the standard size, you can have 15, 30 was a good number. What would that be for a percentage? Used to have 0.3% THC. What is 0.4 milligrams in that tincture? Well, it's 0.001%. So if putting it in those terms, you can see how low they dropped it and how many people would be affected by this change. Where they got that arbitrary and ambiguous number is beyond me, but I'm pretty sure they pulled it out of Mitch McConnell's. What was your question?
So don't you think, though, my guess is that they thought that they were giving us a little more wiggle room and that they
No.
just wrote it in. I see, I think these people I don't give them as much credit for being
And
as devious as you are.
the reason I say they don't is because they don't just all of a sudden throw milligrams when they had percentage. Okay. And the reason I know this is because the second question I asked her was if the rules never changed and I had the same tincture, what is 0.3% THC in milligrams for that tincture? 90 milligrams.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I
So
saw an article.
somebody taught them the difference between a percentage of THC content and milligrams per container. Someone put that in there because that's what dropped it to such almost unlivable, unrealistic end results.
So Treadwell Farms, I saw an article in the Tampa Bay Times today that Jamie Treadwell was quoted in, and she talked, we promote Treadwell products as
Yeah.
Holistic, natural, full spectrum,
Safe, plays
doing
by
the
the
right
rules.
thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, playing by the rules, producing a product that is safe for consumers, that is available outside the medical marijuana program. So if someone was looking for something, that's kind of where I would send them, including my own family. She said what this is going to do to her company is to require them to do all sorts of chemistry in the back half, taking things out
Yeah.
of the product that could very well be the magic that's making it happen. So you said that in 365 days, retailers now, according to the law that was signed Wednesday, in 365 days, retailers will no longer be allowed to sell cannabinoids that have more than 0.04 milligrams per container.
Which is 0.001% total THC. Great, like well done on trying to get it down to that level. It's impossible. That is going to eliminate the majority of products unless you make a product with isolate. CBD isolate has no THC, but we all know in the industry that a broad spectrum, a multi-spectrum, or some refer to it as a full spectrum product provides so much medical benefit that isolate is fine, but more than isolate is better. And those products are not going to survive because it's not reasonably feasible in a chemistry format for the plant to grow this way. You have to manipulate it in some to get to this level of low. It's ridiculous.
So there are some benchmarks now.
Yes.
When we do that 365 and people hear that, I kind of want, before we go into the rest of what may happen in this bill, this can be challenged legally. This can be changed during the regular legislative session so just because right now, as of November 14th, 2025, we're
Okay, you
gonna
have 363 days to get off your butt and do something.
Okay, so we may be able to do something, but between now and then, the bill says that who has 90 days to do what?
So within this timeline, they dictate that 3 activities need to happen by technically 2 groups. One, the FDA, but also they kind of assigned it also to RFK Jr., which that's fine. Health and Human Services, yeah, so he can throw in his 2 cents. But FDA is now tasked with 3 activities, which is 1, providing them a list of cannabinoids that are similar in their effects to THC. So anything that's psychoactive, that's going to make you feel a certain way, get you out of your state of mind, they want a blacklist of products that are going to be similar to THC in some way, shape, or form. How the FDA is going to manage this list or acquire this list is beyond me, but they are required to use peer review studies according to the language. Second activity is provide a list of naturally occurring cannabinoids from the plant. Also, if we don't know every single cannabinoid that the plant makes yet, because there's not enough info and there's always new information that we learn, how the hell is the FDA going to know? But they must know in 90 days. Good luck. And then the third thing is the FDA, although very specifically defined, must more define the word container, because they described it as like 12 different things, but they were like, we just really want the FDA and RFK Jr. to weigh in on what container means. So they want to know a white list of approved cannabinoids naturally occurring in the plant just as it grows, even though not all of us know all of them. And it's not like they were studying behind the scenes. And then a blacklist of cannabinoids that are going to be problematic because they are similar in activity with your body to THC. Great work, FDA. Like they're probably like crying right now.
Huge amount.
I mean, it's ridiculous to expect them to know all of this in 90 days if we don't know it in our entire career.
Well, and you can't push science like that. And I think that it's lovely. I mean, we've identified 100 plus cannabinoids, and there could very well be many, many, many more that we're
If
not
we identified them, Jody, do we know if they're all psychoactive or not?
I am not a researcher. I don't play one on TV. We don't know a lot about what the brain does. So, how these are going to impact, and you also have the synergistic effects too. So it'll be interesting to see where they come up
What
with.
if there was a cannabinoid that got me high, but not you high? Because my endocannabinoid system processed it different. I'm just saying that wouldn't be, at this point, nothing's really that far-fetched to me.
So 90 days to produce a list. What happens after the list?
They give it to the government. I mean, they really didn't say like, here's a timeline. It's just 90 days for FDA to do these activities, and then 365 days for this to be implemented fully, which is a warming up period for these retailers to, 1, take inventory of their current stock of products on a retail space and find out how many of my products are illegal now. If I follow,
we won't even know that for 90. Well, any of them that have more than 0.0000. So
it's going to be
100% of my products are illegal.
Unless you have products made with isolate or products
right.
that have supporting documentation, because that's the other part. They don't say who the enforcement's going to be after 365 days. They just say retailers have 365 days to get situated. They are able to sell off inventory that they have in stock in 365 days without being penalized or reprimanded or fined or punished. But after 365 days, there's talks about penalties of criminal penalties.
Right,
You're
DEA,
breaking the
federally banned.
law. No new products will be introduced to the retail market, retail hemp space after 365 days that violate any of this 0.4 milligram per container rule. I don't even know, there is some difference of opinions on whether they are allowing new products to be introduced in the interim before the 365 days have elapsed, because they know that they're going to be illegal and people manufacturing them will know that they will be illegal. So what would that not be an activity that would be prohibited?
No, if they're giving the industry 365 days, my guess is they're saying, hey, you've got things on your in the drawing board that you were planning on launching product X this month and you have geared up for it. And it is going to be illegal in 365 days. But I would think manufacturers would be encouraged to get rid of their supplies. And the only way that they
think
can
that's
do
what
that
they
is
want. They want you to purge, right? Essentially purge yourself of anything that violates this rule and then just be done with the hemp industry. But what lawmakers don't understand is that the hemp industry, the cannabis industry, does not go quiet and gentle into that good night, right? Let me Dylan Thomas it and kind of Michelle Pfeiffer it up a little bit, because depending on how old you are, you'll know who and which person said it. But
good answer.
Thank you. I think they're expecting this timeline to be that push for the industry to say, okay, it's done. Our run was good. We made some money. We are no longer going to participate or argue. And so we're just going to stop playing in this space. We are no longer, dad and mom said we can't play. So we're just going to be done. And we have a year to like be done and make the money. But what they don't understand, and what most people in the retail space don't understand, is that this does not have to be mom and dad said you can't play with it anymore, so don't, and then just be done. You have the opportunity, just like with everything else, to fight and to argue and to amend and to call and stand up, speak up, refuse to put up with all of this. So your job is not to eliminate your inventory. Your job is to start getting involved. This is not a push for you to be like, hey, join us. But seriously, you really should, because if anyone's going to put you in front of the people to make decisions, it's FL
We're being asked in the questions about renewing licenses, and I would say 100% renew your hemp license.
Stay in compliance.
Stay in compliance. It's 100% stay in compliance.
There are holes in this language that are not completely planned to be filled, very eloquently to say, but let's, for example, they don't have an enforcement division assigned to all of this. They just say, you have a year and then we're going to bring down the hammer. Who brings the hammer down? We don't know yet. We haven't talked to them about the hammer and who wields it or whatever. So if there's not an enforcement program division assigned to this yet, it's just the fear of violating what they just implemented on the low key, then you need to step up and say, okay, how do I stay in business? How do I sustain my livelihood? This is going to mean you will be regulated. Okay. This does not mean it goes back. We already said that. You just need to go and like get some holy water and wash yourself clean of what we did since 2018, and just think of it as an opportunity to make a lot of money and whatever. But if you want to do it the right way, you have an opportunity to stay in the industry if you are prepared to present a retail space that wants regulation, that wants rules and licensing and testing requirements and labeling requirements. If you want the inspections and the fees that everyone else has to do and participate, then we will help to get you in front of the people that will make this possible for you to sustain life. Now, if you don't want to do those activities, well, in 365 days, we will be at your retail funeral, but we all don't think that's what you want, right?
Well, and you know, we've had all along, we've had a black market of cannabis.
Oh yeah.
People who absolutely were not interested in being regulated. Under the Farm Bill, some of them were able to take storefronts that people went ahead and said, well, okay, have a storefront. It is astounding to me. I will tell you, I used to buy my weed from a tobacco shop who sold tobacco and coffee. Now he sold me the weed
That
under
sounds
the table.
awesome.
It was a great place. But so there have always been retailers that were selling weed,
Was it
right?
single origin weed and coffee?
Weed, coffee, and tobacco, fine
Love that.
cigars. So, you know, there was always those shops that were selling it a little illegally. Under the Farm Bill, we've
Yeah.
put up big signs that
Oh
says,
yeah.
hey, come get your
The
weed.
the Farm Bill was what all of the lawmakers feared in Tallahassee when we were coming up with the
100%.
Amendment 2 framework. They were like, we don't want to see neon lights. We don't want pot leaves all over the place. We don't want you to have these weird hours and have these weird, like, trippy posts. Okay, that's what hemp was.
Took on.
Yeah.
It took it.
Cannabis has so many restrictions on advertising and colors and products and locations. They're almost visual vanilla. But then smoke shops that are like, no medical card necessary, marijuana dispensary. They could put that stuff out there. And it really was a eyesore to me to pass those places with the neon lights and the pot leaves, claiming to be legitimate businesses.
Well, and you know, it's a very sad situation. I think that the hemp industry went, hey, you know, we're going to take this is the American dream. There's a new industry. And people
Pioneers.
who were entrenched in alcohol or entrenched in tobacco or entrenched in other in, you know, the pharmaceutical industry, you just couldn't get into those industries as
No.
an individual mom and pop. And so this was a real opportunity for people who had been part of the cannabis space for a long time to suddenly got their piece of the
Yeah.
American
We
dream, their piece of
excluded
the
them.
pie. The problem is, and I think you nailed it very succinctly, is that a lot of these people did not recognize the fact that they were getting into a highly regulated space. And I mean food.
Yeah.
Food is a highly regulated space. Um, the FDAX has all sorts of partners out there that are helping retailers who sell food, either packaged food or sell food that like grocery stores. These people are regulated out the wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and you know, the hemp stores that are kitchens that are creating products in places that we don't even know where they're at,
Right.
that nobody is
No
going in and
inspection.
following the lines, no inspections. These kind of things just don't happen. I'm telling you, the Oreo cookie factory is a highly regulated place, and every ingredient that goes in the Oreo cookie is placed in a very certain place because you can't store this above that. You
Hmm.
can't store. And our most of the people who were in the black market or who were in other industries and were like, I'm gonna sell weed,
Yeah.
had no clue how highly regulated this space was gonna be. So,
It was in
are we
the
getting to the point where small players, is that what they're trying to do, is make it so small farms can't participate?
this is speculation time now. We're in
Okay, speculate.
speculation hour, like, minute. So one thing I did want to touch on was it's as much as I have to say about the hemp industry, exploiting the opportunistic retail market, loopholes and all this stuff. To be honest, it's the American dream to attempt to own your own business, to make good money, to support your family, and to have your own things. I don't blame them for taking advantage. We didn't give them the opportunity or the trail to participate in cannabis like everybody wanted to. That was
Right.
so restrictive. That was so strategically restrictive that people that had millions and millions of dollars could play, and some of them couldn't even play and participate for long
Right.
because it is aggressively competitive. We never gave mom and pop an opportunity. Mom and pop had no op, okay? Neither did black farmers. They had no op, but fortunately we were able to attempt to do right by them, even though that's a whole nother subject. But
Well,
once
we
you say
advocated.
they were operating a retail space in the gray market, yes, it may not be the best idea, but they did what they wanted. They wanted to make money. They wanted to support their families. I don't think it was nefarious. It
No,
was an
right.
opportunity.
Right.
But if you think about the scale at the meat department that slices your deli meats, that scale is regulated by FDAX to make sure that you are getting the appropriate amount of provolone cheese when you order your deli meats. So if they are more regulated with deli meats than your product, which is going like smoking, ingesting, and your scale in your retail shop has not been monitored by the FDAX, which I know they aren't. That's something to think about as far as how long you were able to utilize the program in this fashion. And now it needs to be buttoned up and appropriate lanes need to be lined. Not
So
safe,
I'm
just,
all about come together. I think it is
yes.
ridiculous that the medical market isn't allowed to use coloring. I think it's ridiculous that the hemp market isn't allowed to use colorants. I
Wait,
think it's
who said the
what
hemp market couldn't use colors?
FDAX.
But everybody uses colors in the hemp market. What are you talking like red 40?
I'm talking about we are looking at what the new laws are in the state of Florida. Remember, I just did a workshop this week.
Yes.
So for folks who are just tuning in, there
I
was
get what
lots
you mean. Yes, the
happening in
flavoring and
hemp
natural
this week.
coloring.
Right, natural colorings. So, they have been moving the hemp industry in Florida into that more tightly regulated space. So the Farm Bill is heavily modified. At where we stand today, the Farm Bill has been heavily modified.
It has been completely amended as it pertains to hemp.
365 days to get the products that you have that are non-compliant off the shelf. 90 days for FDA and Health and Human Services to make some determinations about a blacklist of cannabinoids and a whitelist of cannabinoids.
And that will
And,
be the gospel that they use for enforcement. It's whatever
and
the FDA provides.
what a container is defined as. So we're not using serving size anymore. We're using container, which is
yeah,
very, very concerning. Um, we are getting some advice from the industry, the Hemp Industry Association. Now, I think it's fascinating. Coming up in January, Florida Cannabis Action Network is hosting Come Together. It is the theme for our lobby day at the Capitol. And I think we were right on when we started this because the idea was if the hemp industry and the marijuana industry doesn't find some common ground,
yes,
they're coming after all of it. And so I think this is fascinating that they are kind of taking out the hemp industry, but taking out the hemp industry, this would also ban THC drink products, which are
that's
now all over the country. And the VFW has their own brand of
yes.
hemp derived THC beverage.
So
And
beverages have been our topic on the show for a long time. We
yeah,
talked about the beverage lobbyists and ABC Total Wine showing up in Tallahassee because they wanted it. Well, I can tell you right now, they don't want it anymore. So the attempt on a national scale and here in Florida on a local scale for let us have it. We are highly trusted. We age gate. Jody
age
loves
gate.
age gating, right?
Don't
We've been
like
doing this for a long time. You know us really well. We got this. Let us have THC beverages. Well, when that didn't work, which it didn't work, okay, they decided, and as you say, come together with hemp and cannabis. That's what these alcohol companies did. They don't care if you sell gin and you make gin, I make vodka, and actually I want to make whiskey. I make whiskey, you make vodka. They sell gin. So we're all competitors because you could be taking market share from the whiskey drinkers. Like, no, what they decided and what we have to do is they decided, let's all get together and we will hate as a group anyone who takes our market share. Now, when they weren't able to successfully acquire THC beverages, they very successfully made sure they were banned. So that's why I was saying it could have been the top 5 whiskey companies from Kentucky, but there were other players involved significantly from different wine coalitions and beers and vodkas. All of those distribution groups that alcohol related sales, they did get together and say, well, if we can't have you, nobody can have you, which true crime, my obsession with it, this is like tying together beautifully. But that's what we need to do. although we may not agree with everything in the cannabis space with hemp and cannabis, if you want to be regulated and you want to participate and you want to fall in line with the rules and the packaging, labeling, and the requirements that are probably going to be implemented, then yeah, join us. We'll protect you. We'll advocate for you. We're not going to advocate for you to go back to the way things were, because that's impossible. And it's not feasible and it can't happen. And I'm sorry to break that news. But if you want to keep your retail space open and you need to get in front of the lawmakers, this can be changed to benefit and to help retailers stay in business, because this is too aggressively constrictive for anybody to allow this to go 365.
Right.
So now it's time for
Don't
people.
worry yet. So
No,
don't
don't
worry
panic.
yet.
Don't
panic.
Off the
Don't
ledge.
panic.
Come off the ledge. You know, like give me
Don't
the
jump.
baby. Give me the baby. You know, whatever. Like we're gonna take care of you. But there's some things you need to do as retailers in the meantime. One, take inventory of what you have in your retail space that would, in the event nothing happened, be completely unable to be sold. Maybe fire sale that shit.
This is going to be important for as you're giving testimony, as you're writing letters to the editor.
You have to have your facts.
Say, I was 100% compliant as of Tuesday, and if this bill passes, 65% or 85% of the things on my
many
shelf,
dollars,
and it would cost me this much in profits over the next 5 years.
If these, so 95% of my retail space is covered now in products that are going to be considered illegal, which equates to blank amount of dollars. And those could be retail dollars. You could inflate the crap out of it. I don't care. But you need to have your numbers, your values prepared for your lawmakers, because they only care about what's in their jurisdiction, in their state. They don't care about retailers and other. So we're in a federal thing right now where everyone's like, the big business, the federal business is going to be some $1 billion. Well, in Florida, where they can actually attempt to help you if you give them a reasonable argument. You need to have your values and your numbers. How many people do you employ? Okay. What type of like, do you pay your taxes for your business? Okay, I would like to think yes, because if you say no, I don't think you're gonna have a chance. But it's all right. Do you employ? Do you do anything for the community? Do you give back? How much of your investment came from you personally, as opposed to outside investors? No name, no face is not going to help. So get your inventory sorted as if this was going to be implemented, and get your values. If you were planning on expanding, rent, lease, all of these things are going to be factored in. They're going to be good info to provide the people that can change it. After that, you need to partner, get over yourself. Everybody thought they had the best stuff, and nobody had the best stuff, because all the stuff is going to be illegal stuff. So find a way to create a relationship with people in your same community that do the same line of work in the hemp retail space. Do the olive branch and the proper friendly thing to do and say, do you want this to happen? Hell no. Okay. Do you want to be friends a little bit? Cool. And then you guys in numbers approach your local lawmakers at their office, because they have to go back to their office. If you can't, come out to Tallahassee and we'll put you in their office, whether they like it or not. Okay. Jody will talk about your comfort zone. And as a group or a collective, we could be the Pinellas County collective of hemp retailers that don't like the nonsense. Whatever you come up with, cool acronym, alliteration, please. And go as a group locally or in Tallahassee to the lawmakers and say, this is how your, constituents will be affected, your county, and how this business will go out of business. So have your shit ready to go, because it's time for you to do something about it, right?
If you want to stay in business,
if you want to,
and for the last 5 years, I've had retailers that are like, wow, Jody, we're so glad you guys are in Tallahassee, because we're busy learning to run our business. We're busy. And really, until you have a stable industry, you'll never have a really successful business.
And we're not even mad that you're just now showing up to the game asking us for help. We're going to let you have a pass.
Absolutely, absolutely. Glad you finally got here. We do need folks to be joining Florida Cannabis Action Network at the Capitol on January 14, 15 of 2026. Join Florida Cannabis Action Network as a business member. It's really inexpensive, $250 a year. There are other trade associations that are out there that are $5,000 a year. So
Mhm.
certainly make sure that you're involved in Florida Cannabis
And we
Action
aren't
Network.
going to fight for you if you're not. I mean, we're not, this is not an arrangement to where you give us money and we'll fight for your stuff. No, we will help you fight,
Fight for
but we're not
stuff.
going to fight in your absence because
Right.
we're not the retailers. We're giving you the info and telling you there's an opportunity to challenge this. There are challenging opportunities. There are litigation opportunities with attorneys if you want to litigate the vagueness of the language. There's one area. Or if you wanted to litigate against, I guess it would have to be like not so much an amendment, but what do they call that? Call an attorney and ask them. But there is opportunity not just to change it, but if you wanted to sue the government for this stuff, you could totally do that. Now it's going to be more costly than joining FLCAN, but just
Right.
know that like we're not going out to Tallahassee on your behalf. We have our own schedule of like really important things we need to advocate for, but we'll add you to it if you want to put the work in.
Well, and we're
That's what you have to
certainly
do.
interested. We're certainly interested in standing side by side by people with people who are interested in
We have a
advocating for
couple people
business.
already.
We absolutely do. We have some fine cannabis retailers,
Oh yeah.
CBD and hemp retailers that and manufacturers that are members of Florida Cannabis Action Network. So 365 days, the deal is not done. With something that they put off this far out. And you've been very nice. Me, I would say this was a call for money. I would say
How
this is
so?
nothing but a call for money. Um, a couple years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, one of the lawmakers was like, well, you know what, if they're not going to do this, we're just going to ban it all. And before you knew it, a bunch of people were writing checks to political action committees and to legislators to get them reelected. And, this is a call. The
I can see the money
legislature
perspective.
the US Congress is calling on you right now to do one of two things: write a check
Yeah.
or bring as many votes as you can to the table.
Yeah. Cause like the people that are terming out, okay, we'll call them the don't give a dams because this is the
Right.
last year, like your senior year of high school. You're like, I don't care. They make your middle years important for your like longevity. Your last year, we know you're going to slack off. So if Mitch McConnell is willing to draft language that created a loophole just for him to shut and close the loophole at the end and take responsibility for that, that's a lot. You don't think somebody was lining his pockets with gold coins or whatever, I just assume it's like DuckTales style, yeah, because he has to have something to do when he leaves Congress, right? He has to go somewhere. He can't just retire. He's probably got expensive taste. So somebody's giving him money. And I don't think that people have that kind of money to buy favor in Washington or Tallahassee, to be honest with you. So you're going to have something else. But yes, money 100%
That's
seems
votes. And we've
votes.
been asking retailers for a long time now. Look, will you tell your customers that we need you to make this phone call? Will you tell your customers? And I was busy with life and I thought, wow, we really should have done a shout out last week asking people to send letters to their congresspeople. And I feel a little bit of regret that I didn't do that. Uh,
What would they
because
say?
don't shut down the hemp industry.
Well, okay, but the argument and what most people will say is a sacrifice for the greater good. They wanted, but that's why they put it in there, Jody. They knew that if they wanted something controversial, they wanted something scandalous, something very, very sensitive to go their way, they're going to have to put it in something bigger than them, bigger than
Right.
the thing they hate. So that is the ability to come out of the world's longest government shutdown in US history. And so knowing that the people that would go
Can't vote
against
against
it.
that.
Yeah.
Right. So who introduced this section? Do we know?
Specifically, I don't, but I know Mitch McConnell was the one arguing for it to stay put. So it
In
wouldn't
the
be
Senate.
surprising if it was him.
So Senator McConnell has said he's not going, they don't get term limited in Congress, but
Well,
Senator
it's his last year.
McConnell has said
He's
he's not
retiring.
going to run again. He's going to retire. He was championing it in the Senate. Senator Ron Paul was trying very hard to make amendments. I'd like to know who's been adding this angry language, because I think that needs to be a target of the industry. Florida Cannabis Action Network is interested in playing in the grass. What we mean by that is that we want to make sure that as these lawmakers are coming back home and interested in running for re-election, that we are being very, very vocal in those communities, particularly if we've got Florida lawmakers who were pushing this. We want to oppose them
We have
during their
midterms coming up.
election. We have
Midterms,
midterm elections.
1 year from today is November of 2026. All
Absolutely.
from the time he signed it until the 365 has elapsed, those people are going to be campaigning for your support. They want you to be their constituency. Okay. They want you to be whatever you love, they love. And just, we care about everything you believe in. And so this is the time to utilize that, beg for my vote and my attention to your advantage, because it is crappy timing, but it's actually really good for arguing, which is one of my favorite things to do on the weekend.
Senator Ashley Moody, U.S. Senator Ashley Moody is going to be asking for your vote
and your support.
Every congressperson in the state of Florida is going to be asking for your vote, and every member of the Florida House of Representatives is going to be looking for your vote. If you want to know more about how you can stay involved, Florida Cannabis Action Network is a membership-based organization. Membership starts at just $5 a month or $50 a year for individuals. For $500 or more, we treat you really, really nice.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That sounds really kind of creepy, but like professionally nice and
professionally nice. Okay. Thanks for it. And it's her telling me I sound creepy. Don't you think that's
no.
interesting?
It's usually me.
So,
and we'll be in Tallahassee in January. So like, if you'd like to come now. Well, you're in Tallahassee now. Yes. And fight the good fight, lady. But if you want to come and voice all of your concerns to the people out there and say, I'll vote for you if ... you hear me out. Come to CAC, Cannabis at the Capitol. It's probably going to be the most important one of our history.
Absolutely. Come together with Florida Cannabis Action Network at the Capitol. We've got membership opportunities. So I said, there was a workshop this past week for the top 10 violations. So if you are a retailer in this space, when FTAX comes in, the number one problem that they have with products that you have on the shelf is that your products are not labeled properly. So, labeling. There are a lot of new requirements on what has to be on the label and the hemp products. And so as a retailer, there is no service that is like checking somebody's label. We don't have any of that kind of stuff. And I guess there are some services in other industries.
I'll do it.
I thought it might.
We do label claim if you test with us, but you have to actually test your products. So that's why, there's probably a lot of labeling.
Well, there's more to it. Your COA has to be current. You have to be able to get to your COA within your QR within 3 pops.
Okay.
So it can't be buried. Your product has to have an expiration date on it. If it doesn't have an expiration date, it's not compliant.
Are they allowing Best Buy if used dates? Because I know that's what they were introducing, because expiration date takes a lot of data.
So it has to have a best if used by date. Yeah. Okay. And you have to keep the product C of A available for at least 90 days after that expiration date.
I volunteer as tribute to do all of this for you for a very small fee. And I'm just saying I can do all of those. And I helped FTAX create the label requirement example that they use in their paperwork. So I will say that.
Plug for Cynthia to go over your labels.
If you donate to FLCAN, I'll approve one label.
As a retailer, you are the one who will ultimately be held responsible by
Yes.
FDAC if the products on your shelves are not compliant. So it's good for everybody to know that is something that they are looking
How
for.
many products? What was the second worst violation? Do you happen to know?
I would have to pull that up.
Well, no, the first being labeling. That one I would think over it like I would think it would be
Huge.
testing, like it would be above the threshold of allowable THC. But then I think, I guess labeling, they are actually really specific in Florida about labeling requirements. So Wilton Simpson and Operation Safe Summer was incredibly successful with FDACs and the public safety perspective. So this data that they got, that Jody collected, is invaluable.
So one of the things that they're saying about labeling is that your units of measure and your contents have to be just so. The place where it is manufactured has to
Yes.
be a real place. And we've seen some of that.
Not
One of the products,
Neverland.
yeah, we went and checked on a product that somebody had taken and had a bad experience with. And when you did like the mapping on it, it was some rundown building in Orlando that maybe used to be an office building. And the Google photos were really like, oh my gosh, I don't even think the rats in this building, you could practically see the rats in the Google photo. Number 2 violation, attractive to children.
Oh yeah,
Right?
that one, sexy kids,
Animals,
is
humans,
yeah.
cartoons, and no
Whimsical
additives.
creatures, all of them.
Wow, and this is really a shame because the one example they're showing is like a spaceship. Um, so they're really not liking that. And then the reasonable resemblance, they don't want your logo or your business name to look like any other logo or any other. But in any other industry, somebody comes up and starts calling their tennis shoes Nike, uh, or putting the big Nike check mark on it. Nike's
Right.
coming after you. I mean,
That's what I was
you
gonna
do
say.
it.
So now that the exposure of products that are attractive to kids, that are very similar and actually misrepresenting the contents, and actually kids are starting to ingest them just based off not curiosity and attractiveness, but because they didn't know that Weedos and Cheetos were not just, it wasn't just generic Cheetos spelled funny. They actually had weed in them. And so
Right.
these companies are coming after these hemp retailers that end up being way too similar to their trademark logo, and they will pursue that. I think the reason they haven't so far is because they can't really nail down one specific player that keeps exploiting the Nerds logo for Nerds Rope. But I've got Moroccan oil in my hand that is like my favorite thing. It's Moroccan oil. It's for your hair. Makes it feel like baby skin. There is this tiny travel bottle has the fluid size, the location of the manufacturing, okay, the contents, like, yeah, everything that you just mentioned. And this is for my hair. It does not go in my body. So I think it's reasonable to say maybe pick a location that's a real place for your manufacturing. If you're gonna
Well,
lie longer.
and if you wonder why this is coming up, in 2018, there were 184 calls to the Florida Poison Center over hemp and cannabinoid THC products. In 2024, there were more than 1,774. So, we're talking exponentially more calls, exponentially more exposure. The good news is that these cannabis edibles exposures that had gotten so high in 22 and 23, 24, they were constantly going up. Now that we're getting some of the worst offenders off the shelf, these things are starting to step down.
And
So,
news was reporting it as if they were young boy sent to hospital over cannabis edible, when actually it was young boy sent to hospital over hemp derived THC edible. It's never, I don't think I've heard a story in Florida of an actual MMTC product sending a child to the emergency room. So the benign packaging, the, even though maybe the appropriateness of the parents' protection of their medicine, um,
or
I,
their recreational product.
right, or whatever. Yeah.
Lock your alcohol cupboard or put it on top of the refrigerator, and don't have a stool next to the refrigerator.
Exactly. Unless someone can correct me about a cannabis product being the direct result of some child going to the emergency room because they accidentally thought it was not a cannabis product, I will eat my words. But it's usually the hemp space, but they just say weed. They say
Right.
a weed infused gummy was taken to school by a child and now all these kids are in the hospital. Well, that was a hemp derived THC gummy.
So, but we need to come together. So I don't want
Come
to,
together, yes.
I want to regulate ourselves, because if we don't regulate ourselves, they will regulate us.
Aggressively.
We need to figure out where the lines are.
Mhm.
And we need people who are serious about being in the industry to join us there.
And
uh, and,
accepting of
and,
regulation
and accept
and
that we're going to
licensing.
be regulated.
Yeah.
I guess that's what we got. Oh, I don't like it. Free the weed, free the weed, free
I
the
know.
weed. No?
I know. We didn't even get it. We're going to do a roundtable with industry stakeholders about this specifically and how it would affect their business model to give people perspectives on what to prepare for your arsenal when you go and talk to people that are going to help you change. So that will be very important. That'll be a special edition of Elevated Intel. And then, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, they're just gonna have to join the fight because this is not
Yeah,
gonna go away unless you are gonna be super aggressive, but we will be aggressive with you.
that's
Passive
right. You're
aggressive.
not out there by yourself. Thank you, everybody, for following along with Elevated Intel. I'm Jody James.
Don't jump.
Don't jump. My co-host is Cynthia Brewer. Florida Cannabis Action Network can be found at
Nailed
flcan.org.
it.
Thanks to Steve Thaw for
Yes.
helping us with our production. If you are looking for back episodes of Elevated Intel, you can find that at the Florida Cannabis Action Network YouTube channel. And we will be back next week for some more Elevated Intel.